I'm trying to remember. I can't remember which years things happened in, but I think it was in the summer of 1969. There was a peace conference here, which was over by Providence Hospital. There was one of the Catholic orders had a house on the grounds that had a big hall, and there was a peace conference. And there were similar conferences happening all across the country, and the Trotskyites, the Socialist Workers' Party, made a decision to basically to split the movement. And they did so across the country, and it happened right when we were having this conference, and one of the co-chairs of the event was from, what was their youth organization called? YSA. And they staged a walkout in the middle of the conference. The main issues were over, was it going to be a single issue coalition that talked about the war and only the war, bringing the troops home, setting the date for an end, negotiating, and only those things, or was it going to be a coalition which reached out to other sectors of the community that weren't involved yet, African Americans, other nationally oppressed, unions, and did so by adopting a multi-issue agenda. And they insisted on a single issue agenda.
Trotskys.
Yeah, and they succeeded in splitting the movement. And so in Seattle, from ever after, there were two main peace coalitions. One was called the People's Coalition for Peace and Justice, which I participated in, and I think, I'm not positive, I think the other one was the Seattle Coalition for Peace. So for any of the big demonstrations, both coalitions had to come together and negotiate how they were going to, you know, who was going to be on the speaker's program and how many from your coalition and how many from your coalition. They still collaborated for all the big demonstrations, which, you know, I wasn't here, but some of the other comrades went to the first demonstration here against the war in Vietnam, which was, I believe, happened in '63 at Westlake Mall, or it wasn't a mall then, but I've heard two reports. Some people said there were 40 people there, some people say there were 60. By the late '60s, the demonstrations here were mostly around 6,000 in Seattle, up until right after the invasion of Cambodia. And there was a demonstration that the, I think it was Seattle Women Act for Peace and Women's International League for Peace and Freedom had scheduled a demonstration that was against, they were shipping nerve gas on trains that were going through Seattle. So they had scheduled, you know, nothing, the invasion hadn't happened, but they already had this scheduled, and the invasion happened that week. And so this demonstration, which was going to be basically a tiny, you know, more symbolic kind of vigil type thing, turned into a demonstration of 30,000. And people from, I mean, it was one of those, it was amazing to be at. It was at the federal courthouse, right between the courthouse and the library, which is now torn down, which was where most of the demonstrations were. And the 6,000 people would fill up the lawn and fill up the street, and that was about it. But for that one, just the crowd waiting filled that up and more. And then there were these demonstrations that came down from Capitol Hill, from Seattle Central Community College, came from the university, marched down the freeway, you know, and that by itself was 7,000 or 8,000 people. So there were 30,000 people there that day, spilling down all of the streets and everywhere. And we, some of us left the demonstration and went and shut down the freeway in a sort of civil disobedience, which it's not something I'm necessarily sure I would advocate today, but it seemed pretty militant at the time.
And what year was that?
1970.